Well, that was not good. The Denver Broncos fall to 0-2 on the season, losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers in pretty embarrassing fashion. I mean, this offense is looking a bit rough. I feel like I've been watching the same Denver Broncos game, the same Denver Broncos offense for 8 years now. I don't know if this is going to get any better. I'm still optimistic, but through 2 games, I don't really know what to tell you. We'll break it all down here on this evening's installment of your Locked On Broncos postcast. Let's talk about it. Drop some comments, Broncos country. Let me know how you guys are feeling as the Broncos get embarrassed at home, 13-6, 0-2. Pittsburgh Steelers come to town, get the victory. Let's talk about it on your Locked On Broncos postcast.
You are Locked On Broncos postcast, powered by Mile High Sports, part of Locked On Sports Denver, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, it is your Locked On Broncos postcast. Hope everybody is hanging in out there in Broncos country, as that was a deflating loss. I mean, like I said in the open, I feel like I've been watching the same Denver Broncos game for nearly a decade now. I don't know what type of deal the Broncos made to get that Super Bowl ring for Super Bowl 50, but it has been awful, just absolutely awful ever since. And look, I don't want to go too crazy. Do you still believe? Let me know in the comments. He was rough today. I'm not going to go completely overboard, but I thought that there was some nice positive stuff to take away from week 1 against Seattle. That was the opposite case today at home. And look, I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers are great, on defense in particular. All Mike Tomlin knows how to do is win football games. But today, not a lot of positivity from the Denver Broncos, at least on offense. We'll break it all down for you guys this evening on your Locked On Broncos postcast. Hope everybody is doing well out there. And today's episode of your Locked On Broncos postcast is brought to you by the fine folks over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. More from our friends over at Gametime here in just a moment. Also, you guys can follow me on social at Media by AP. You can also be sure to check us out on social at Mile High Sports. This is your Locked On Broncos postcast, a partnership with Locked On Sports and Mile High Sports. An absolute pleasure to be here with you guys. Wish it was under better circumstances. Wish we were doing a victory show, but we'll have to see, we'll have to pump the brakes for our first victory show of the season. But make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys, Locked On Sports Denver. That way you guys never miss an episode of your Locked On Denver postcast. I'm the host of the Locked On Broncos postcast, Locked On Buffs postcast, and Locked On Rockies postcast. Rockies were bad today. And as I said on today's Locked On Rockies postcast, Rockies, shake hands, Broncos, abysmal offense. I mean, both of these teams right now just are terrible on offense. But of course, this is the Broncos show, so let's get right on into it. Bo Nix, bad, really bad today. 20 for 35, 246 passing yards for an average of 7 yards per completion, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, including a disgusting interception in the red zone. Broncos had themselves a pretty good drive at one point, and that Bo Nix interception just wipes the slate clean and puts the Broncos back right to square one. So, he throws that inerrant interception at the end of the game. I can't really hold that against him. It was supposed to be a Hail Mary play. You're kind of just hoping that you're throwing the ball up there and you're saying a prayer. So it is what it is. But I just thought the Broncos offense today was abysmal. And again, the stat line for Bo Nix, 20 for 35, 246 passing yards, offensive line, a little bit of a problem, and here's the other thing is not to discount this loss in any way, shape, or form. Pittsburgh's defense is one of the best defensive units in the NFL. TJ Watt is a stud. Seattle last week, one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. And so, out of the gate here, it has been anything but smooth sailing for Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos offense, but you want to just see something. And the reason that I start with this today, like I said, it feels like Broncos country's been watching the same team, whether it's Bo Nix, Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, Paxton Lynch. Who else am I missing? Teddy Bridgewater. Did I say that already? I don't know. Like, it feels like the same old song and dance. There's a military saying, or at least I learned it from Call of Duty when I was a kid, SSDD, same bleep, different day. And that's what it feels like for the Denver Broncos. It just feels like it's the same nightmare over and over and over. And look, here's the other thing. I'll give Bo Nix, not Sean Payton, Bo Nix, a little bit of a pass. He's a rookie. He's trying to find his way in this league. He's had two really tough matchups out of the gate, again, in Seattle, which is probably the hardest place to play in the NFL, and at home against Pittsburgh with that new version of the Steel Curtain. All Mike Tomlin knows how to do is win football games, folks. I know that there's some Steelers fans out there that are really down on Mike Tomlin, whether it's Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, whoever they had last year as well, or the last few years since Big Ben is retired. Mike Tomlin knows how to win football games. And Pittsburgh was able to win ugly today. They jumped out to an early lead, scored 7 points there in the first quarter, and then just a couple of field goals. So, whichever way you slice it, Denver was just not ready to play today. I mean, looking at the stat line for Justin Fields, it's not like he lit up the stat sheet today. He dropped back to pass 20 times, 13 completions on those 20 pass attempts. He only threw for 117 yards, took a handful of sacks as well, had a QBR or a quarterback rating of 97.3, a touchdown. But the big thing is no turnovers for Justin Fields today. And Bo Nix, his quarterback rating was 55.2. So, it's just whatever Sean Payton is trying to do with this Denver Broncos offense, whether it's easing Bo Nix in or, I don't know. I mean, Sean Payton is supposed to be this quarterback guru who, prides himself on developing quarterbacks. I mean, you think back to his time in New Orleans, with Taysom Hill and Teddy Bridgewater, finding ways to win games. Sean Payton, what is it? Sean Payton, Mike Tomlin, and Andy Reid, I believe they're the top three, and probably John Harbaugh as well in Baltimore. These are some of the most tenured and experienced, winningest head coaches currently coaching right now in the NFL. And look, I know that there were some people in Broncos country that had their, reservations about Sean Payton, how things had gone towards the end for him there in New Orleans. And look, if you want to give Sean Payton a pass for last year with Russell Wilson, we know that relationship was never going to work. So be it. But so far through two games, the returns have just been bad. I know that they were in that game last week. This was a very winnable game for the Denver Broncos today. And it's not like Major League Baseball. It's not like the Rockies where you've got 162 of these things, or the Denver Nuggets or the Colorado Avalanche where you have 80 plus games. And you know what? Hey, we can drop a game. We can get back up on our feet and move forward and win a couple in a row. No, this is the NFL. Every single game matters. Every single Sunday matters. And I don't want to say that the Broncos were unprepared today, but clearly whatever they're trying to establish on offense is just not working. Bo Nix looks like a rookie, right? Which is what you kind of come to expect, but just no juice, no momentum. And that one drive there where they were able to establish a little bit of momentum, he throws the interception there in the end zone. And again, rookie mistakes, growing pains, this and that. But I just thought this was a very uninspiring game from the Denver Broncos. Their defense was good. We will give them that. Vance Joseph, ever since that Miami game last year, he's done a good job of kind of picking up the pieces, toying with some stuff, and, maneuvering that defense around. Stupid penalty on PJ Locke. I don't think it should have been called a penalty on the unnecessary roughness, which ended up extending the drive for Pittsburgh, which ultimately helped them milk the clock. But that's how the Steelers are winning games right now, folks, whether it's Justin Fields, like I said, or insert quarterback here. That is how the Pittsburgh Steelers are winning games. And I thought that this matchup today was more about the Broncos' inability to generate offense and generate consistency, positive consistency at that, because they were consistently bad on offense today. 3 and out, punt. Like, it was just, it's torture for the Bronco fan right now. I feel for all of you out there. Drop some comments on the YouTube, Locked On Sports Denver. Let me know how you're feeling, because it is just the same old song and dance. We got one comment here from my guy, son of Jacob. No, Nix is trash. He's worse than Tebow, LOL. I don't care, rookie or not. He's terrible. Let's pump the brakes there just a little bit. Remember Peyton Manning in his rookie year? Not great. Not great at all. And it's going to take some time for this kid to figure it out. The rookie quarterbacks, none of them have really looked so good so far this season. So I'm not trying to be completely down on Bo Nix. I'm not out on Bo Nix by any stretch of the imagination, but what you saw today was just brutal. And I think that falls on the play calling. I really do. I also think it falls on the lack of a running game. I mean, Bo Nix was your leading rusher today. 4 carries for 25 yards. Let me say that again. Bo Nix, the quarterback, led the Denver Broncos in rushing yards today. That is a problem. They have no running game. Javonte Williams had 17 yards rushing. Tyler Beatty had 16 yards rushing. Jaleel McLaughlin had 6 yards rushing. You're not going to win football games if you don't have a run game. And I said this last night on the Locked On Buffs postcast. It was the same thing with Colorado. Against Nebraska, no run game. They make a concerted effort last night against CSU to establish the run. I know it wasn't highly effective, but at least CSU had to think about the run. Also, CSU is not very good. So apologies to any of the Rams fans that are watching the show. But you have to establish the run. Run the dang ball. You need to figure out a way to at least make the defense guess or think about the threat of running the ball. And again, Pittsburgh's defense is solid. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. You know, it's hard to run on that defense. But the fact that the run game is non-existent is a problem because all you're doing is putting the weight of the world on the shoulders of a rookie quarterback in his second start where you don't really have that many positive weapons on offense either. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But why don't we hit our first break? When we come back, why did the Denver Broncos get rid of Tim Patrick? Why did the Denver Broncos not keep Tim Patrick? They need some sort of veteran leadership at the wide receiver position because you know where Courtland Sutton is? I don't know. Where anyone see Courtland Sutton? Anybody out there seeing Courtland Sutton? Courtland Sutton's been non-existent this season. I know it's only 2 games. I'm not trying to get too carried away. But Bo Nix right now is not being set up for success. That's on coaching, and that's on the positional talent around him. So we'll talk about that when we come back right here on your Locked On Broncos postcast. All right, you guys, let me tell you about the fine folks over at PrizePicks because you're going to want to listen up, folks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. Be sure to check out our friends over at PrizePicks because all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And let me tell you about some of the awesome features from PrizePicks, guys, because you can play alongside celebrities like Drewski, Joe Budden, and former MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stays in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your PrizePicks are still live. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And let me also tell you about our friends over at DoorDash, because I know I don't like going out all the time to get food when NFL season is here. So make sure to check out our friends over at DoorDash. Guys, what else is there to say? What's your best piece of game day advice for fellow fans? Well, for me, it's ordering your food with DoorDash. There's literally no other way to go. It is one of the best delivery services out there, guys. There's tons of promotions. You can use code LOCKEDONFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. This is a limited time offer. Terms, they do apply. The promotion is not valid for orders containing alcohol, though. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app today to order your game day favorites. You must be 21 plus in order to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol is only available in select markets, guys. And, there's so many different ways that you can go when it comes to NFL Sunday. Sometimes I like Chinese food. Sometimes I want pizza. Sometimes I want wings. Sometimes I want to kick back with a nice pulled pork sandwich and maybe some brisket. Well, the beautiful part of DoorDash is you're going to have all of those options readily available. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what DoorDash is at this point. If you have not checked them out, be sure to do so, because if not, you are missing out with our friends over at DoorDash, guys. It is so easy. Use promo code LOCKEDONFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. It's a limited time offer. Terms apply. The promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. Again, that code is LOCKEDONFALL24. Football season is here, which means it's time to be a couch potato. It's going to start getting cold out here in a little bit, so make sure to check out our friends over at DoorDash again and use that code LOCKEDONFALL24 to get yourself a little bit of a discount. Check out our friends over at DoorDash and let them know that Locked On Broncos sent you. Okay, welcome on back into your Locked On Broncos postcast. I am your host, Aniello Piro. Hope everybody is hanging in there out there as, the Denver Broncos fall to 13-6 on the season. We'll have to see, just what this Broncos team is going to be able to do here moving forward, as, the schedule is pretty tough for them this year. But I just thought that today was disheartening, to say the least. And as soon as I'm done doing this show, I'm going to turn on the Sean Payton's press conference, because I'm extremely, extremely curious to see what Sean Payton has to say. Again, this is a guy who's labeled himself, I guess not labeled himself, but, around the league, he's been known as this quarterback guru, this quarterback whisperer, and he was anything but that today. Or he's been anything but that, really, for the Denver Broncos since his time as Broncos head coach. Last year was a disaster with Russell Wilson. So far through 2 games, it's not looking too good for Bo Nix. So we'll have to see what Sean Payton is able to draw up here moving forward. But one thing I've got to say, I was talking about the rushing attack there in the first segment. Again, Bo Nix was the Broncos' leading rusher today, 4 carries for 25 yards. Javonte Williams, 11 carries for 17 yards. Tyler Beatty had an explosive run, but only had 1 carry, and it was for 16 yards. I'm not sure why Tyler Beatty wasn't more involved with the offense. He was just called up from the practice squad earlier this week, so maybe Tyler Beatty becomes a center point for the Broncos in the backfield moving forward, because the other guys just aren't getting it done. Jaleel McLaughlin had 3 touches today for 6 yards. I mean, that's just downright embarrassing. 19 total carries for the Broncos and only 64 yards of rushing offense. That is not going to cut it. And as I had mentioned, by establishing the run, that's going to take some pressure off of Bo Nix. That's going to allow Bo Nix to be able to run some more play action. And I also just thought that the play calling today was rather uninspiring. I want to go ahead and read a tweet that I came across in the middle of the game. This is from TJ Jenkins, who's a quarterback coach. He's a very popular guy for his takes on social media, has his own quarterback academy as well. Jenkins Elite. He's an NFL analyst and a former NFL QB. I thought he made a good point. He says, something I'm pondering. You start a rookie quarterback to get him experience and develop him. The experience he's getting is highly protected, quick game and vanilla scheme. We don't turn the ball over at a high rate, but we attempt very few NFL-worthy throws. Is the experience or evaluation of the QB going to be any good? I think that's a very relevant talking point, because Bo Nix is, he's being thrown into the fire as a rookie. It's not easy. And I just don't think that the Broncos coaching staff and the Broncos skill position players have done a great job of setting him up for success. I mean, it just seems like there's very limited pre-snap motion. When they do drop back to pass, it's just uninspiring. And frankly, Sean Payton in his post-game press conference last week after the Seattle loss, talked about how he went over to the bench at one point and, was basically like, hey, we got to give this guy some help when he was talking to his receivers and his running backs. And, the receivers today, nothing crazy. Josh Reynolds had that 149-yard reception. He finishes with 4 receptions for 93 yards, but pretty vanilla beyond that for the Broncos wide receiving room. I mean, they don't have a lot of guys. Little Jordan Humphrey, 4 receptions for 50 yards. Javonte Williams was the Broncos' 3rd leading receiver. He had 5 receptions for 48 yards. Where is Courtland Sutton? Where is Courtland Sutton? And that opposing teams' defenses, when they're game planning for the Broncos, the one receiver they're going to circle is Courtland Sutton because he's the only legitimate wide receiver that has proven really anything in the NFL. So naturally, teams are going to try to take away Courtland Sutton from Bo Nix and force Bo Nix and Sean Payton to get a little bit more creative on offense. But where is Court? Only 1 reception today was for 26 yards. Greg Dulcich, 3 receptions for 16 yards. Marvin Mims Jr., 1 reception for 10 yards. Tyler Beatty had a reception for 2 yards. I mean, outside of that, nothing. Troy Franklin, nothing. Nate Atkins, nothing. They had 246 yards receiving today, did the Broncos. They have got to figure out a way to get Bo Nix some help here, guys. And, I hate to beat a dead horse, as my guy Cody Rourke NFL pointed out today on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Why did the Broncos just cast away Tim Patrick? Like, I understand that he was coming off the injuries, 2 consecutive devastating season-long injuries. He hasn't played in a couple of years, but at least he's a vet. At least he's a guy who's experienced some degree of success in the NFL, because right now the Broncos just have a lot of guys. What did Steve Smith call Jerry Jeudy last year? A jag? Just a guy? The Broncos have a lot of those just a guy type of receivers to fill out their skill positions right now. Again, the stats are just abysmal. I liked the Josh Reynolds signing. I think that Josh Reynolds is a nice player. He's a big-time receiver on 3rd down, but Josh Reynolds is going to become more effective when you have the other guys around him contributing and making plays. And I don't really know what else to say about the wide receiver room. And again, I can't put all of this on Bo Nix. Obviously, there's a little bit of a, this is an instant gratification society that we live in. We saw CJ Stroud, last year elevate the Houston Texans to the playoffs in his first season. We saw Joe Burrow, once he came back from his injury, ready to go. Patrick Mahomes, when he got his chance, ready to go. Jalen Hurts, even to an extent, he got his chance, ready to go. And so, we have seen, these quarterbacks at a young age, rookie, sophomore, junior season, whatever it might be at the NFL level, capture that lightning in a bottle and catapult their teams forward. The difference is the Broncos have a severe lack of talent at the skill positions. And so it's hard for Bo Nix to figure out a way to make this thing work right now. And as I mentioned, I just think it's a combination of poor play calling and frankly, just not enough momentum from the wide receivers, just not setting Bo Nix up for success. The Broncos receivers have not been doing a great job of catching the ball. There was a number of instances throughout the game today where, Bo Nix was putting some balls, maybe not right on the money, but absolutely catchable for the Denver Broncos receivers, and they were just unable to do that. So, we'll have to see what the adjustments are here moving forward. Unfortunately, it doesn't get any easier for Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, as they have a tough schedule out of the gate. They've got the Buccaneers coming up next week, who are 2-0. Tampa Bay just upset Detroit today. So Baker Mayfield having a little bit of a renaissance right now in his career. It's just, it's not going to get any better anytime soon, in my opinion, for the Denver Broncos. So we'll see what they do. They got the Jets after that. We'll take a preview about the game coming up with Tampa when we come back here. But pretty disheartening, pretty disappointed with what I saw from the Denver Broncos today, at least on offense. So, all right, let's hit our final break. When we come back, we'll get ready to put a bow on the show. Let's talk about that defense a little bit. I thought they did a good job today. It's just, like I said, same old song and dance. We have seen this game. We have seen this story time and time again. The Broncos defense has not really been the problem these last handful of years. I'm talking back to Vance Joseph as a head coach, Vic Fangio as a head coach, and now Sean Payton as a head coach. They've always had pretty good defenses. It's no one has been able to crack the code on how to make this Broncos offense work again. They are broken. And so far through a season and 2 games, Sean Payton, looking in his pockets for answers. So we'll see if they're going to be able to get some of those answers as we move forward throughout the course of the season. But all right, let's hit our final break. We'll come back and put a bow on the show right here on your Locked On Broncos postcast. Stick with us, folks. All right, you guys, let me tell you about our friends over at Gametime, because you're going to want to go to some Broncos games this season. You want to go to some Buffs games this season. Nuggets and Avalanche start in a month, so you're going to want to make sure to get your tickets from Gametime. And let me tell you why, guys, because Gametime is the best place to get your tickets. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, guys. There's so many super deals. Let me tell you about some of my favorite features from our friends over at Gametime. I told you about the Gametime Picks, but my personal favorite feature is their all-in pricing. When you toggle this feature on Gametime, it shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. I love that. There's nothing worse than, this ticket's $50, right? And then you put it in your cart and there's an extra $25 worth of fees. When you toggle that all-in pricing feature on Gametime, you're going to get that total upfront. I love that. Plus, you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy with their seat viewer. And guys, the lowest ticket price guarantee or Gametime will credit you not 100%, but 110% of the difference. Let me say that again. Lowest ticket price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. You'll love to see that. Plus, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, though, create an account and redeem with code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. And I'm a Gametime user. I got some tickets to see Billy Joel earlier this summer at Coors Field using Gametime. I used that same promo code and I got my $20 off, and you should too. Broncos games all season, Buffs games all season, Nuggets and Avalanche coming up as well. If you're not getting your tickets through Gametime, I don't know what to tell you, folks. You're missing out. Be sure to check them out and let them know that Locked On Broncos sent you. Okay, welcome on back into your Locked On Broncos postcast. I am your host, Aniello Piro. Hope everybody is hanging in there out there as the Denver Broncos fall to 0-2 on the season. Disappointing game today for Denver, 13-6, your final score. A winnable game for the Broncos as they were unable to get the job done. And penalties were an issue for both teams today, but it absolutely ravaged the Denver Broncos. Absolutely ravaged them. They had 9 penalties for 124 yards. That's 124 free yards that they essentially just handed to the Pittsburgh Steelers this afternoon. Big problem. You want to see the Broncos try to clean that up a little bit. Pittsburgh was not clean on their own by any stretch of the imagination. They had 10 penalties in this game for 78 yards, including the offensive lineman who had 3 penalties on one drive, which resulted in Mike Tomlin yanking him out in the middle of the game, or in the middle of the drive, rather, I should say. Try to address that and clean that up. But penalties were an issue for both teams today. Again, 9 penalties for 124 yards. Pittsburgh wins the time of possession battle slightly, 32-19 to the Broncos 27-41. But I mean, if you're looking at the stat sheets, guys, I mean, like I said, it was a winnable game for the Broncos. They had more passing first downs than the Steelers did, 8-7, more rushing first downs. They had, 5-4. But here's where it's killer. You know how many first downs from penalties the Broncos had today? 0. You know how many first downs from penalties the Steelers had today? 5. The Denver Broncos gifted the Pittsburgh Steelers 5 first downs today via the penalty, and that's how you beat yourself. This game to me was more so about the Broncos beating themselves as much as anything. I think it's a combination of that and some lack of talent on offense at the skill positions, which is not doing Bo Nix any favors right now. So at the end of the day, they're going to have to figure out a way to try to clean this thing up. But, the Broncos ran 56 plays, only generated 295 total yards of offense, which is actually more than the Pittsburgh Steelers generated, only 251 for them. So, like I said, it's not like Pittsburgh went out there and thoroughly dominated this game and made Denver. This is more about Denver losing than it was Pittsburgh winning. And that's what Mike Tomlin does. He's an incredible head coach. He knows how to win games, regardless of the circumstance, regardless if he's at home or on the road. And The Broncos were simply outplayed today, outclassed, and their defense was good, though. I throw out all of these metrics and whatnot. The Broncos defense was good. They gave that touchdown early in the game, but they only allowed 6 points shortly thereafter for the rest of the game. So you can't really be that upset with the Broncos defense. It's just, like I said, same old song and dance, because they can't score any points, at least at a high rate or on a consistent base. Alex Singleton today, 11 total tackles. Cody Barton had 7 tackles. Singleton led the team with those 11. Brandon Jones had 7. Jonathan Cooper had 5. Jonathan Cooper's a nice player, man. He gets after the quarterback. This Broncos defense is bringing it. And I know that, Jonathan Franklin Myers, Mike McGlinchey exiting in this game as well with an injury. So, we'll have to get some injury updates on those guys. But the defense held up their end of the bargain today. They were much better, I think, this week than they were last week against Seattle, even though that was another winnable game for the Broncos. Defense did a good job of making adjustments. They were good in the first half against Seattle, and then bad in the third quarter, made some adjustments in the fourth. But today, outside of that opening touchdown for Pittsburgh, the Denver Broncos defense was good enough to win this game. Like I said, they held up their end of the bargain. Couple of FUBU penalties there. PJ Locke with an unnecessary roughness call that I thought was, Gene Steratore came on the broadcast and talked about it, of how, it's kind of a principal flag. You have to throw it because of how the play plays out. But, this is football, right? There's going to be contact. It's a contact sport. You got to be able to, I don't want to say instill fear in the receivers, but you got to let the receivers know that you're there and that you're going to make a hit. And so, like I said, the penalties were flying for both teams today, but just a couple of critical ones for the Denver Broncos. But we'll see where they go from here. Like I said, they've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming up next week. That's an early kickoff, 11 a.m., as the Broncos are going to try to get their first win of the season. I mean, if you go 0-3, it's not looking good if you go 0-3. I mean, it's not looking good after 0-2, but their schedule really doesn't get any easier. Next 2 games are tough. At Tampa, at New York. 2 tough games. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers is healthy now. They're going to be better. And then, they come home on October 6th to play the Las Vegas Raiders, who had an upset victory today. So, I'm not trying to say the Raiders are going to be a great team this season, but you can't just kind of cast off the Raiders. And the Raiders have had the Broncos number in recent seasons. So we'll see how that shakes out. But a couple of closing thoughts on Sean Payton. Like I said, as soon as I'm done with this postcast, I'm going to check out his post-game press conference, because I'm very interested as to what he had to say about how this game played out. But there was a lot of debate entering the season about, do you start Jarrett Stidham or do you start Bo Nix? And here's what I have to say on that front. While if you start Jarrett Stidham and the result is likely the same, at least you preserve Bo Nix a little bit. Because that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to give Bo Nix a full pass, but I do recognize the hand that he's been dealt. A lack of depth at skill positions, lack of positive players at skill positions, non-existent running game. And 2 consecutive weeks against 2 really tough opponents. In Seattle, the most hostile place to play in the NFL, and at home against Pittsburgh, one of the best, most tailored defenses in the NFL. By throwing Bo Nix into the fire and providing, knowing what he's stacked up against with the wide receivers and the rushing game and all that kind of stuff, I don't think he's been set up to succeed. And I'm not trying to say Bo Nix's confidence is shot, but maybe for some of those people that were ready for Bo Nix to start, I was one of them. I wanted to see Bo Nix right away. But maybe starting Jarrett Stidham may have not been the worst thing in the world. And I know it's hindsight. It's always 2020. But now you got to think about the narrative around Bo Nix. 2 weeks in, and there's really not a ton of positive to take away. Unfortunately, we have to kind of keep leaning back on the fact that he's a rookie as the excuse as to why he's been playing poorly. I mean, that interception today in the red zone was abysmal. And it's growing pains, right? You got to let him work the kinks out, all that kind of stuff. But knowing that you've got now 2 games against a good Tampa Bay defense with Todd Bowles, the head coach, and old pal Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers, who looks like he's going to be pretty good this season, who's to say that the next 2 games are going to be any better than the first 2 games? Just from what we've seen. They're not going to get any better at receiver. Lord knows if they're going to get better at running back. I'm not really, hoping and praying that. I mean, I'm hoping and praying it's going to happen, but I'm not counting my money thinking it's going to happen. So we'll see what adjustments Denver's able to make. But, if you're Sean Payton, he's got an ego, right? He loves to puff his chest out. Last year he put a lot of the blame on Russell Wilson. As soon as he got to Denver, he put a ton of blame on Nathaniel Hackett, and how no wonder the Broncos were so bad. Look at how they were running the show. Well, newsflash, Sean, so far through a season and 2 games, you're not looking much better. Obviously, anything's better than Nathaniel Hackett, but I would think that Sean Payton's ego is a little bit jaded right now, because this is a guy, as I mentioned, who's had a lot of fanfare and, was built up by a lot of people across the league for his ability to generate points and generate offense. And through 2 games, it's been anything but that. Bo Nix looks extremely uncomfortable. He's mentally, he looks okay. Like, he doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, but the results speak for themselves at this point. So, a little bit of a gut punch, I would think, for Sean Payton. Hopefully that motivates him, because I don't think that this is how he envisioned this season playing out. I don't think this is how Broncos country envisioned the first 2 games playing out. But here we are on September the 15th at around 6:30 local time. And I think a lot of Broncos fans are kind of sitting back and being like, oh boy, we're in for a ride. Buckle up. It might be another year of bad offense, decent defense, and subpar play on the field. And I hate to say that, but that just appears to be the way in which the season is trending. So we'll see if the Broncos can right their wrongs. We'll see if the Broncos can get back on track. But the odds are stacked against them right now. I'm not in love with their skill position players. I'm not in love with their offensive line. And frankly, I think Bo Nix is getting a little rattled out there, a little frazzled. And that's not good for a rookie quarterback. But, we'll see if the Broncos can pick themselves up. If they can take it on the chin, if Bo Nix can try to figure this thing out. They threw him into the fire. Now he's in the frying pan. It's going to be up to Sean Payton and company to figure this thing out. But a couple of takeaways here. I put out a tweet on social media. I want to get some Broncos country reaction. Here's what you guys are saying about it. And again, folks, I'll be here live on the Locked On Sports Denver YouTube channel after each and every Broncos game. Here's a comment. He's a rookie. He's a rookie. He's a rookie. Someone says, honestly, Bo Nix looked more comfortable as a whole despite the pick, but our receivers have got to catch. I completely agree with that. Someone says we have the same team every year with different faces. 100% agree with that. Here's an optimistic point of view. When Bo Nix heats up, we start moving, need better red zone conversion and better run game defense. If Bo Nix can get comfortable quicker against teams, he can play elite. But as a rookie, I feel he's taking more experience chances than winning, trying deep passes, understanding defense and what they're trying to do. I think these are all valid points here, folks. And I'm not saying the season's over. I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom, but you got to look at what we have from a sample size. And so far, it has been bad for the Denver Broncos. So they lose today 13-6. And next week, they've got a tough matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll see if Bo Nix, Sean Payton, and company can get back on track. Offense is bad. Defense is solid. But all in all, you are what your record says you are. And the Denver Broncos find themselves at 0-2. But all right, that is going to do it for me today, folks. Really appreciate you guys tuning in to today's episode of your Locked On Broncos postcast. Make sure to smash that subscribe button on the Locked On Sports Denver YouTube channel. And you can follow me on social at Mile High Sports, at Media by AP. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday nights, and we'll talk to you guys next weekend. Hopefully a victory show as the Denver Broncos get ready to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But for today, it's a 13-9 loss, Denver at 0-2, and that's all she wrote. We'll talk to you guys next week. Enjoy your Sunday night.